very happy to have one of our own here today. Before I introduce Josh, I do want to remind my undergrad students about the citation. Let's get right to it. Josh Shepard is a Texas State University alumnus. Josh will be interviewed by Sydney.
Thank you. So welcome, Josh. What does it feel like to be back on Texas State campus?
Crazy. Considering I was here at 5.
The old name doesn't change.
I have some nicknames.
Well, we want to talk about the progression of your career, but first I want to tell a little bit of the story about how I met you. Josh used to work for Emmy Television, which was the sort of MTV for Austin. And he did interviews with musicians. And so I was kind of a fan. I would watch his show. He'd have a red couch that they came and sat on. And I would watch these things. And one of my neighbors had a CD release, and he went on Josh's show. And I enjoyed that interview. So I sent Josh an email after that and was like, oh, I really enjoyed that interview. Thanks for interviewing Brent Adair, by the way. Check him out. Thanks for interviewing Brent. You did a really good job. And he emailed me back and was like, thanks, I'm just glad anybody was watching it. And then a few weeks or months later, I don't know, I get another email from Josh. And he's like, so what can you tell me about this master's program you have at Texas State? And we became fast friends after that. We'd meet for coffee and start talking about master's programs, start talking about what you might be able to do in the future. And a few years later, he's graduating from our program. And now, several years have passed since you've even been here. It seems like it was just yesterday.
Yeah, it's been a weird change. So for whoever can look at my page or whatever, I was a journalist for about 8 years. I went to UT, graduated in 2001, was a TV reporter and producer, and it was great. We did local news and national news. Worked with CBS Sports out of Austin. It was fantastic. Television. And I got, actually, we were talking about, that was the first startup I've ever worked at. That was in 2006. We were only 35 people in that network, but it folded, and I did a good job since 2008. Hiring, I got, just so you understand, I got one offer from a friend of mine to go to Lubbock to do weekend sports, in which I asked him, well, how much does it pay? He said, what are nickels and buttons? And I said, so I went to grad school now.
Well, you had a blog that you did for music and interviews and things like that. And so was that what got you interested in the digital realm?
I had a conversation, so I didn't get a job. Just This was 2008. I was like, I don't know that is. So I got that, and we just started going, meeting and talking, and I started doing interviews. What I created was an internet radio show. That's what it's really called podcasting. This internet radio show right with musicians, because it's the only thing I really wanted to do. What I wanted to go do that. So for basically a couple of years, but for that, literally for a year, podcasting.
Learned how to build a blog and learned how to work on a website, upload files and move them around servers, and I had to learn it all.
I mean, I had my music side at the time, and I think, we were in that group of people who kind of followed each other on social media because we knew that we both were into music. But having those experiences of using digital products for passionate hobbies, I think is a good skill builder, right?
No, it totally is. I realized about 2 months into it, like I didn't need a TV station or some newspaper for me to work in to tell a story or interview people or get something out there. Like all of a sudden I can put it on a website and I can put it on iTunes and all these people can download it and then tweet at me after they look. Like it blew my mind because I was very much in this idea that journalism only comes out of a studio or only comes out of a newsroom. So it took me a second or more than a second to like really figure out, no, I can control the message, I can control all this from the den in the house that I was in.
And so, coming to our program with that sort of a background, what did you find when you got into a program that sort of got more of a, I don't know, I guess an organized approach, but an innovative approach to digital? What was your hope in coming to our program?
I think part of it was learning skills, and part of it was kind of like reprogramming my mind and thinking about things differently and trying to just learn what else is out there. I would say the program here, the program at Texas State was great for that, but also, interning at places and talking and doing different things and trying to figure out what is this digital new media world at that time. Because once again, I didn't have a full grasp of the power that it could have. I had started my grad school exploration, we'll call it that. I went to UT for a semester in 2005, the fall semester. And I really didn't enjoy it. It was a little bit, the grad school was a little bit more analytical, a little bit more research-based, and I was asking questions about blogs and websites and things like that, and they weren't really concerned about that. It didn't fit for me. And it may have been that I was just too young at the time to even get it, because I feel like that's part of the maturity process of going to grad school. But then coming to the program here, it was people that were wanting to talk about those things and discuss and figure out, where does all this new media, where does all this digital stuff actually cross and make sense for journalism or marketing?
Yeah, like figuring things out as we go. Like, there's not a lot of answers. There's not a whole history of any of this. And, just talk about applications. So I think that's a good you to be on when you start thinking about your future, because you're going to go out and influence other companies. So 2011.
Was a small agency, about 20 people. I was one of one in the digital department, so I did everything. So I did community management of a bunch of clients. I made sure the websites were worked. We'd have some contract website people, so I'd like make sure things were going well, doing email blasts, trying to figure out like what's going on for this agency that had been around for about 4 or 5 years, but really hadn't grown, and they wanted to grow. So over the course of basically 2.5 years there, I grew that department to about 6 people, had community managers, had designers, had devs, and we were doing everything in-house. I got to a point where I wanted to like learn a little bit more. I don't know, sometimes when things get stagnant, I start to look for the exit door. So I was looking for the exit door, and I got lucky enough to jump into a startup called Mass Relevance here in town. Don't tweet this, but this is what they do, or what they did was, they would kill me, and they will kill me when I say this, but they put tweets on TV. That's like the easiest way to understand what they did. I know Dale has, this is a good example of what we did. Basically, it was a platform that figured out how to take social media content and then put it on display, either on the web or on TV. So anytime you're watching American Idol or The Voice or even ESPN and you see a tweet show up or you're voting on The Voice and it's like a weird Twitter meter, that was the software from Mass Relevance. So this is one of the projects I worked on for E-News. When I got hired there, it was basically an engagement manager. What I did is I worked with the dev and design team to build out really cool custom projects using social media, using the platform at Mass Relevance. So this was the Instagram wall for E-News, which was really fun and really difficult. The second piece to this was awesome. They had a huge touch screen in the studio, so they could actually touch everything, flip pictures, and and check out the data. But the stuff that I found interesting is we had to figure out how to make this work. Basically, the sales guy, who's a good friend of mine now, he basically sold this idea and then he dropped it on my desk and he's like, okay, go, figure out how to do this. And so we had a bunch of technical stuff we had to work out. But these kind of projects, I really enjoy because stuff that's never been done before, you gotta make it work, sort of thing. And it's all up to you to work with a team and figure out the best way of doing it.
And he has that Kardashian money, so like
Yes, they have tons of money. They are, I think they're Viacom too, so they've got plenty of cash. And then I worked with a team at Mass Relevance to basically do the World Cup social stuff
Very
for
cool.
them for the last World Cup for the men's tournament. So we built out this website. It was on about 800 pages of their website, which was crazy, in 8 different languages, I think. It was basically the entire social discussion around the World Cup for every team, every player, every country. Lots and lots of good stuff. So that was one of those projects that no one had ever done before as well. It was like, okay, here's go, run with it, do something. It was a lot of late nights and a lot of stress, and I don't ever want to watch soccer again. But still to this day. But yeah, we built some really cool stuff at Mass Relevance and things that I'm very, very proud of being a part of.
And then what happened to Mass Relevance?
So this is the thing with startups. You either do really well and become Facebook, you get acquired by someone else, or you fail. So 90% of startups usually fail. That is the number. At Mass Relevance, we got acquired by Spreadfast in Austin. You may know that name. They're also they play in the social media world, but in conversations, they let you monitor and listen to what people are saying about you or your brand, and you can respond and do all that stuff. So we got.
And we've had some graduates working.
Yeah, we've had Andrew.
Andrew's there now. George Viator was there.
Yeah, there's some really good people that work there. So we got acquired by them. So our world kind of changed. Even my world did too. I left my position there and then went to a different position at Spreadfast, basically to teach them what our Mass Relevance platform is all about. Okay,
and then you decided to leave?
Yeah, I decided it was getting a little stagnant, so I was looking for the door again. And I ended up at Social Distillery, which is a small social media agency here in Austin. Really good people.
People work there.
Yeah, they do some really awesome work. And so I wasn't there very long. I got brought in to kind of help the client side of things and work with that team and get them kind of more mature and up and running and things. I left there after a few months because I got a great opportunity to join some of the former Mass Relevance people with a startup called Mashbox, where I was managing partner, running a new business in biz dev as well as client services. Was there for 8 months, but like I said, with startups, things don't always work the way you want them to. So we had to make some changes, and they're going to pivot actually. So I walked away from Mashbox in February to go find some new exciting things, and that's where I ended up. I'm at OneSpot.
This is my 3rd week there, but it's my first real week. We had South by Southwest. I started the week with South by Southwest, so it was a week of parties and drinking. That doesn't count as work.
And learning in panels.
Yes, and learning and panels. But this is the first real week where we're like sitting down and we're figuring out what we're doing with a small startup. We're 25.
So tell us a little bit more about OneSpot. Like, what does it do, and what are you going to be doing?
So OneSpot is an interesting take on what personalization is for content marketing. So I'm assuming when everyone's kind of had this experience, if you've been on the internet, you go someplace, you go to Nike and you click on some shoes, and then the next day you're on a different website and those same shoes pop up like in a banner ad. Has everyone had that? They're like, buy these shoes. So that is a kind of type of personalization. What OneSpot is doing is a little bit different. We're not really worried about the e-commerce part of things. What we're worried about is actually promoting and engaging with people with your actual owned content. When I mean owned content, I mean like your blog posts or recipes. So a great example is one of our clients is Whole Foods. Whole Foods has, I don't know, almost 20,000 recipes and has been just creating recipes for like the last 7 years of their website. So our software, which is pretty easy for them to use, basically allows those recipes to be personalized to you when you go to their website. So when you go to the website, Cindy, your website, your recipes are going to be different than John and Dale based on what you've clicked on their website, but also what you've done on third-party sites. That's kind of the key thing. And what we call infinite segments of one. I know it's kind of spooky, but that's exactly what it is. When we talk about personalization, we're talking about serving up and curating content for one person, for that individual. And what happens is when you get that sort of content that's not trying to sell you something, but it's content that you actually care about, you're more likely to come back and check out more stuff. So for someone like Whole Foods, we started running some tests and seeing how things were going. The really cool thing about it is, people would only click on about 3 pieces of content, but then when they got served up really personalized things that mattered to them, because they went to CNN.com to read an article about gluten-free, and all of a sudden the gluten-free recipe popped up on the website. They went and checked out 5 additional articles. So they're looking at 8 recipes for people that are looking at 3 recipes that didn't get that personalized. That just strengthens relationships, and that's really what we're about. The e-com world, there's a ton of places that are doing that. There's tons of startups and companies, especially in San Francisco, that really push personalization for e-com. But we want to do it for content that you would want to read.
So I totally agree that like serving up advertising or marketing content to users that is relevant to them is really the future. Because in the past we've had, I'm watching TV and there's a car ad. Well, I don't want to buy a car. I don't care, right? So, getting something that's more relevant and meaningful to you, even if it's advertising content, can be valuable information to a user. But how do you prevent like the creeper factor? Like how many people have been freaked out when you go on Facebook and there's the thing that you had just searched for on Zappos, right? Everybody, right? Yeah. So, I'm sure these are discussions that you have, right?
Yeah, they totally are. Yeah, these are things that we talk about because you don't want to be too creepy. It really depends, I think, on 2 different levels. One, how excited you are about stuff. Like, if you love cooking and you're getting 8 recipes sent to you and everyone gets a home run, you don't really think about the creepiness factor of that. So people that are like gung-ho fans, they love it. We play around with like what we serve up. One of my favorite words that I just learned working at OneSpot is the word dithering. So it's like the randomness. We can throw in some random recipe here or there so it doesn't seem as creepy, and see if it hits home as well. So I think it's kind of Minority Report-ish, but at the same time, like I think it's a valuable tool. And to be honest, I think if you're serving up stuff, curating content for people that they really care about, I don't think the creepiness factor matters that.
So in all these jobs that you've had, and you've had a range of them, and you've had to learn a lot of new things to be able to execute what you've been asked to do. So how do you learn these new things? How do you learn the technical aspects? How do you learn the management aspects of what you've had to do?
Yeah, that is a difficult thing to do. So we can go back to, I've had 4 jobs basically in the last year, OneSpot. So I've been at 4 startups. So I've had to learn a lot. Probably the best, I'll put it this way, when you're looking for a job, find places where the people there are very passionate about what they're doing, and just being in the middle of that makes your life 100 times easier, because you'll have people there that are talking to you about whatever it is. If it's building a better sandwich, and that's what you care about, and that's what they care about, that's what you're going to be in the middle of. So I think that helps a lot. Also, I mean, as like cliche it is as it is, Twitter is like the best thing ever. Like if you're not using Hootsuite or even TweetDeck or something like that, and you find hashtags and just run searches on hashtags and just watch those. There's articles that people are always posting and putting up there. So, like I have at my position now, I have 2 screens, and one screen is just for basically my Hootsuite, and I just have searches running, watching people talk about content or content marketing or personalization. I don't. This is not necessarily my background, but I can sit there and go, "Oh, this person's interesting. I'll follow them. Or I'll read this article." And to me, that's been the best thing ever. It's kind of just like zeroing in on the conversation and finding it there.
So you have to figure out how to be resourceful.
Yeah,
Like, there's nobody that's going to tell you necessarily what to do if you're the person that's been hired to do it, but you can be in a supportive environment and then use all the resources that are at your avail, whether it's Googling or on Twitter or reading articles,
Right.
keeping up to date.
and there's like a piece of fake it till you make it. Like there's this part.
This is the real stuff,
This is
people.
I
Yeah.
mean, this is this part where like I went to an API integration agency at Mashbox, and I know stuff about APIs, but at the same time, like if I'm going in, I've got to learn everything I can, but I've also got to kind of just figure out through context clues what I need to know over the first couple months and go from there. But yeah, I don't think anyone can expect you to be a genius. The digital world's like gotten way too wide for you to be able to understand what every platform does, what every, even in social media, what everything does. It's almost impossible. So it's kind of learn as you go and figure things out.
I mean, I'm always leery of those people who call themselves social media experts anyway, just because so many of the platforms are new and evolving. How are you an expert? This came out yesterday, so be leery of those experts or ninjas out there because everybody's learning as they go.
Yeah.
So having been in all these different startups, I mean, what is your advice for people who want to either start a startup or work in a very small organization at the beginning of its life cycle? What do these students need to know if that's something that they're interested in?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. If you want to go the startup route, you have to understand. Depends on where you are going and at what size you're going to jump into. I think the first thing you have to understand is you're not going to make $1 million right away. You're going to take a cut with the idea that you get stock or some sort of equity. That's basically they're betting on you that you're going to stay there for 4 or 5 years and help them get to a point, and that you're betting on them that they are going to get this startup someplace. So that's just something to have in mind. You're not going to walk into a startup and make, a 5-person startup and make, $100,000. It's just not going to happen unless it's already funded by someone. I think that's part of it. Really understanding what that technology is and really caring about it is going to get you further, and finding companies where those people that work there really care about what you do. I went to Mass Relevance. This is a true story. My 3rd day there, my head hurt so much. Like I had like a migraine of like trying to pull in all this information. And I was like, I'm a pretty smart dude. I can figure this out. I went to grad school, blah, blah, blah. And I had my trainer, my Sherpa, we called her Glenn, she was the best. She was, or she is still, 11 years younger than me. And like, just put me through the ringer. And I just was like, holy crap, I don't know if I can do this. You get through the week and you realize this is awesome because you have people that are really passionate about this. They want you to succeed. They want you to do a good job. That's why they brought you in. You have something to offer them. You gotta be a sponge, get all that in, but you have to find places that are like that. If you go to a place and they're not really into like the camaraderie or getting you in, it's gonna be just tougher on you. I'm not saying you can't do it, but I really recommend finding a startup that those people really want to see you succeed. And it's about a common goal. It's not about where am I going to end up the next year, what promotion can I get. It's about we're here to build something and do this really cool thing, whatever it is. And we're all in it together, and we're all going to get down to that.
So I want to open it up to questions, and so start thinking about what you want to ask Josh. And we're using the hashtag TXST Digital. You all know that from doing it all semester. So who has a question for Josh?
Yes, first of all, thank you for coming out to speak with us today. I got two questions for you. First one's going to be, who's your favorite musician you ever got a chance to interview when you were doing that? I'm sure you guys see a couple interesting ones, hear a good story of your music. And second question is, you kept talking about the point of stagnation, where that's usually what you guys get about. Do you see that as more just a personal choice of not moving forward, or do you think it's a sign of failing to start up and that's why you're jumping ship?
Those are both big questions. I'll take the second one first. I like kind of think about it. I know who I want to talk on the first one, but I don't really care. Since we're streaming it, I think the stagnant thing is me. I don't think it has anything to do necessarily with the company or the place. I think you're just gonna. For me, I hit a place where I'm like, I'm not learning anymore, and I get bored. I'm not being challenged enough. I once I get basically the Rube Goldberg machine going and going and going and going, like I've got it. It's working. Like I kind of just feel like, okay, what's next? What else can I do? So I think that's a personal opinion. If
But
things
it could be a reflection on what's happening in the company. It doesn't necessarily have to be.
right, it could be that too. Like if you're sitting there going, I'm doing the same thing, and the company's also not progressing, then maybe you have a bit of a problem. In my two cases, it was like I wanted another challenge. I wanted to do something different, and I wanted to see what else was out there. Like I said, this is my second, maybe-ish, third-ish career. Like I've got a lot to learn, and I don't have the opportunity to start at 22. So I don't want to be stuck at a place for 5 years and bored and go, I wish I had gone and done this. I wish I had done this. That's just kind of where my head's at. I have got to interview some awesome people. Pharrell from NERD being one of them.
That was years ago, right?
Yeah, that was like 2008 at South by Southwest. Talked to him. He was awesome. I think probably I'll give you an interview that's not a musician that I think it will always stick with me. There was a boxer in town, Jesus Chavez. When I worked at KI, I was in art films doing a story for CBS. There was a boxer in town, and he had a huge fight coming up. I want to say Vegas, and he's like a lightweight fighter. And we started talking and doing this interview, and he kept on like holding back, not really talking about what was going on with him. He just kind of was just there, and he didn't really seem comfortable. He didn't really seem happy. And my photographer was like, "Let's go, we're done." No, I'm gonna like figure out what's going on. It took me like 20 minutes, but it turned out that he had just gotten married, and his wife had gotten sent to Afghanistan, military, and nobody ever knew that he had gotten married. And so it was one of those things that was like, that's the actual story. He's going to the box, but his new wife, who had married like 2 weeks before, wouldn't be able to see that, and she was right. And so that was like, to be honest, like that was one of the interviews that will always stick with me. More so because as a journalist, I don't know if there's journalists in it's the story that you get sent out to do may not be the story you come back to. If it's not, and so my story was more about how he was fighting this fight, but really something else. And people like really help. So it actually touched me. Like I don't know what it is. Like I don't think most people do this. Fight with people.
I did get a question from somebody on here that wanted you to repeat that word that you I think dithering.
Dithering.
Dithering. Next question.
So, my question is, a lot of the time, we don't think that you don't want to
Besides like the obvious, that it just happened. And that happened 2008, where they just were like, look, we can't pay you guys. We all said, all right, we'll help you. And that's what happened. I think there's a couple things that you can think about. Am I still passionate about this? Because maybe the idea is a good idea, but just the situation, right? Like, you don't have the right team around you. It's not moving the way you want it. There's a million different things that can happen, right? If you're still passionate about the idea, I don't think you should ever give up on what that is. If you're finding that no one else is passionate about it, or there's not a market for it, I would say that maybe your first kind of hint that it's time to move on. If you're building a new sandwich, it's going back to that. You're building a sandwich that no one wants to eat. It's hard to, even though you love the sandwich, at a certain point you have to make the right decision for you. Even though you could stick with it in 20 years, love your sandwich, good for you. You can wait 20 years, but sometimes the market dictates like if you're going to be successful.
There are techniques for failing and failing fast, like getting comfortable with failure, but then prototyping and doing things cheaply so that you're not like investing $1 million before you fail. There are a lot of things in the startup environment that like help you get to that point of experimentation, and it's okay to fail, but not having invested all your money in that one failure.
I think it's totally fine to fail, especially if it's a small group of people too, right? Like, you're not just continuing to hire people at an 80-person startup. You still haven't really figured out exactly what your product is. I think that's an issue. And I know that there are startups out there that have failed because they've grown too big. Like, they've grown bigger than the product will allow them to actually get out into the public. I used to be really scared of failure. I guess I still am to a certain degree. I struggle with that to a certain, like I said, to a certain degree. But at the same time, like if I'm not trying something, I'm gonna get bored. I'm not gonna want to do that. And I kind of just shut down.
What you also said before, you're not 22 anymore, and
Right.
so those of you who are young, I mean, you might not think of this way, but you have time to try things out and fail and try again. That window gets shorter as you get older, unfortunately. So use your 20s to try things out. Question?
Flip side of the previous question, what do you look for
Yeah, that's a great question. If I think there's stuff that I wish I had realized in the past, even just like job interviews, right? Like, if you go to a job interview, and this is something I've learned, if you go to a job interview and whoever's interviewing is reading off a list of questions, probably I would recommend not working. That they can't have an actual conversation with you to figure out who you are, or can't spend the time to memorize 5 of those questions to take 30 minutes to talk to you. Like, if they're just being given a sheet of paper, you're going into a conference room, they're going to ask you some questions, they're going to take notes and leave. I want to find a place, it goes back to passion, but I want to find a place that's going to be invested. Like, who's going to spend the time to get to know me? Because it's like, in a weird way, especially in Austin, in the startup scene, it's a little bit like dating. It has to be a good fit for both of you. Like, if you get there and you don't really like the people, there is a startup in town that a lot of people want to go work at. I cannot go work there because it is not a good fit. I do not. What I want in a workplace is not that. It works great for other people, but I just know that. So I think really figuring out where you fit in and if it's a good place, research and look at your C-level, your execs. What have they done? What are they doing? What kind of people they are? Do they give back? One of the coolest things about Mass Relevance is we would always do, at least once a month, but always once a quarter. Like, we would go work for a nonprofit for the day. So a couple weeks in when I started working there, half the company went to Urban Roots, the farm. It's a farm in far East Austin, out off Fulham Road. Half of us went to the actual farm and then harvested all the food for them before the big cold snap came. The other half helped basically redo their website and move things around and build out email templates and things like that. That gets me excited because it's not about like we're building this cool widget and we're all going to do this thing. It's like we're going to build this widget, but we're also going to try to be a part of this community. I don't know. Those are find those places that fit what you want to do. If you want to go to a place and rage all day, do it. If you want to go to a place and it's quiet and you want to work in, you know, cubicles, then find that and go that. I mean, if you want to do open seating in an office and you're cool, like you got to like really figure out where your best fit is. I can't really tell you other than that, but there's certain things out there that I think you'll know when you get there if it's a good fit.
So he used the phrase C-suite, and you'll hear people talking about that. If you don't know what that means the people who run the company: chief executive officer, chief financial officer, chief technical officer, the chiefs. They call it the C-suite.
The chief people person.
Yeah.
So startups are kind of notoriously bad with work-life balance. Do you consider that anything that as your project?
Yeah, totally. I am. Let me take this either way. I am lucky. I'm not married. I don't have kids. Lucky for me in the choices I make. We'll put it like that. So it's easier. But you work at a place and you got to put in 60, 70 hours because everyone else is and everyone it needs and wants to do that. I think that's definitely important. Now there are places that'll be like, look, it's open vacation policy. Like you can take as many days off as you want to get your stuff done, or they'll let you work from home. And if you can find places that'll be flexible for you, that's great. But yeah, startup. If you're gonna go all in, you got to go all in with everybody else.
And if you're going to work that many hours, you better really care about what you're doing.
Right. Yeah, because you can't work 60 hours a week and be productive and not care about it.
So you've done a lot of startups. That's really cool. Do you think you're going to keep doing startups the whole way until it finally works out? Startup experience, startup experience,
Like a question for my mom. I don't mean that bad, but it's literally a question from my mom. She's like,
Get a stable job.
I don't even know how this works anymore. It's like her latest comments about my job situation.
Sounds adorable.
Yeah. She's kind of a weird voice of reason too. You know what? I think this is kind of built into my nature. For me, I've been doing this kind of for like 10 years, like jumping and working in little small shops and trying to figure out what works. Yes, I think there's something to be said about, I think everybody to a certain degree, and it probably grows the older you get, wants to go what we call client side. Like I want to go now work for Coca-Cola and deal with all the startups under me that want to work for me. And I think I can take that, Coca-Cola, maybe not best example, but I can take that experience and understand like where people are coming from and how they are figuring it out as well and how they're pitching me and really kind of understand that. But yeah, I think at a certain point I'll probably get done with the rat race. At the same time, like I love it. It's every day is a crazy not do whatever I want, but like today is a great example. My whole job is to like talk to big brands and try to figure out what their world is for content marketing. So I'm on the phone or emailing or LinkedIn people. I don't know how that works. And trying to just start conversations and talk to people. And that's my job right now. Is we're trying to figure out where we are in this market, right? Like we still don't know where we live. At the same time, I talk to someone who like wants to talk about a partnership, and I go, "Hey, can I talk to this guy about a partnership?" And the CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, goes, "Yeah, why not? Like, let's talk to this guy." Like, it's do whatever you want in order for this thing to succeed, and I really enjoy that. Like, being able to wear quite a few hats and do what I feel is necessary, to do a good job, but also like for us to take another step.
We're sort of in an innovative culture right now. So even if someone were to go work for a big company, they need to know how to be innovative within that big company structure. Do you have any sort of thoughts on just an innovative mindset that people need to have going into anything?
Yeah, I think a good example of this. So Mashbox, we were a systems integrator digital agency for API. What we wanted to do was build dashboard and data, take data and turn it into something visual that we could all. I really feel like there's a future for that. What's interesting about innovation is the more companies I started talking to, they were realizing it too, and they were doing it internally. They were building teams. They're like, you guys are doing great stuff, but we want to do it internally. So, to kind of answer your question, there may be a place that I can go that wants to innovate and do stuff internally. I think probably I learned this from a mentor of mine. And this goes to the innovation question. I think if it doesn't answer it, ask me. Find places where you like find places where you like the problems that they're trying to solve, and you like the ways they're trying to solve those problems. And I think that's the innovation part of it. Like, this is a problem. I want to solve it, but I want to solve it this way. You can find those kind of companies out there that are doing that. And to me, that's where I find I'm the most successful. Or those are the things I get most excited about. But I think everybody's innovating. Like every agency, even the big agencies, are like gobbling up small little software companies because they see something in it that they can use further down the road. I just think everybody's learning that you can't just kind of sit back and let the world kind of come to them. It's like we got to develop all this stuff ourselves.
Hi, Steph. So,
Yeah.
The dark side.
what you've learned from it, and then as the next question, what startup what
Mm-hmm. Right. So data scientist is probably the sexiest term right now for job seekers. Everyone wants a data scientist, someone that can go through data and figure out what it means for them. There's tons of positions for analysts as well, and I mean this in like I think almost every like Yeti coolers. I think just recently had like some sort of analytic person, like every company. So if you really want to do that, I would probably just try to circle companies that you are excited about checking out and you want to work for, and just start looking to see if they have positions.
Like data journalism is a huge area. So somebody with journalism skills and data, and then social media now is all about analytics.
Yeah.
And so there are going to be tons of opportunities for people who are good with data, and they're just going to grow and change. But first question, the dark side.
No,
Startup.
It's totally fine. I mean, I would say, to be completely honest, my time at Matchbox, well, it was great. It was like a really, kind of strangely dark moment. Because I've gone to places where, at least, the couple stops before that, where I was pretty successful. Either I was successful in my mind, or I was successful to the people that I worked with. It was a real tough sell. I think I probably bit off more than I could chew, and it sucks that when you have to have a conversation with the founding members of the startup, and they're like, "This doesn't seem to be working out," and you go, "It's true, it's not," and you put it all on me, and I didn't make it happen. Um, that being said, like that experience has helped me tremendously. And I had to learn so much on the run that once again I feel like it was a good experience, but also probably one of the worst experiences to like realize that you're like no matter how hard you try and how many doors you knock on and how many phone calls you make, like you just keep running into the highs.
But a learning experience and something that like took you to the next step.
Yeah, definitely. I think. I mean, another tip I would put out there: don't burn bridges when you leave any place. Um, now, I mean, I say that, but there's probably a couple people that would disagree that I never did that. But you're gonna make friends and you're gonna make acquaintances like throughout this career, and those people are gonna end up in different spots. And if you've done right by them, they're gonna be able to help you out. The person that hired me at one spot, I actually had pinged him a couple months before when I was at Mashbox and was just asking him about my sales technique and how am I reaching out to these people and if I'm doing the right job thing. And he went through it with me and worked with me for a little bit. It was great. And then when this happened, he was one of the very first people that called me and was like, look, you bust your butt, you do good work. Like, if you want to come work for us, let's do this. So, like you just constantly have to learn. And that's really hard for someone like me. I mean, I feel like my brain is aging and I'm like not getting, I'm once again not 22 anymore. So it's a little bit more difficult every time. But at the same time, that's what makes me excited about working.
Hi, Josh. Thanks again for coming out tonight. I just wanted to ask, what would you say is the best digital technique that we can use right now, or that companies are, whether it be JavaScript, CSS?
Yeah, like what do they need to be learning right now while they're in school? They have this time, they're here, whether it's a class that we're teaching or something else that they need to figure out.
So I would think, to be completely honest, there's a million things that popped in my head. It's like, but what is the most important? I was like, what did I use today? That was like the first in my role. What did I use? Which is not even a very technical role anymore. I would say CSS and HTML. Like I had to do an inspect element on a website to see kind of what they were using for.
How many of you know what that means? Good HTML web design people.
Right. So I had to look at a website today to see what they were using for their social media widgets because I was just interested in finding it, and then I had to like comb through it all and figure out, where does this module come from and things like that. I think that's extremely important because not that you may ever use it in like a coding, you're not going to build a website, but to be able to like just know the language enough that you can maneuver your way through it, and fix things and understand things. I think that's a huge piece.
It's just such a foundational
Right.
language. It's what the web is built on. And the more that you know about that, the more valuable you're going to be as just a foundational thing.
Right. Like I found the div it was in, I opened the div, I looked at what it was, I was like, oh, that's what it is.
How many of you know what a div is? Good.
So like things like that, all of a sudden you have a step up on someone who doesn't have that. The analytics piece that's such a huge push right now. I think just getting an understanding of what insights are, what is analytics, what can you get from that information, and wrapping your head around that is super. We I mean, I have not. I'm trying to think back to Spreadfast. I don't even know if Spreadfast is using SPSS. I think they were just they were building their own tools basically to do their data analysis. I know there are companies that do that. I've seen it on job. Right, because these tools keep changing. I mean, it's if you think about when you talk about social media, how many social media platforms there are out there, and each one of them measures engagement differently. So you just got to learn as you go. Because it's going to take a while for those tools to catch up. So you're basically playing catch up.
I find that SPSS is used a lot in a research environment, although some companies will use it. A lot of companies are using this language called R to do some high-level data analysis. Then others are doing, Google Analytics.
Right.
So you're right. It is mostly about understanding the analysis part and not really focusing on the tool. Just like learn the tool you have to use.
Yeah.
Is there another question?
So you said since this is a career change, once you started to get into startups and tech side, are there any resources that you use, or just kind of go from place to place, even if you didn't have a tech background growing up?
Yeah, I didn't. The only tech background I had was going to class here, and it.
You had that blog before you came.
Yeah, I had some other.
Was that a blogger blog?
Yeah, it was. You know, I had kind of learned on my own and figured it out as I went. That's the only. It's not very good advice to figure it out, but yeah, I think that's the best way I learned how to do it. I didn't have really a big technical background. I had a very good storytelling background, and that actually ended up has helped me more than anything. Like I can kind of formulate a story about me, and that's actually good. Super good.
You talked before about using resources like Twitter or Google to figure things out, but how do you just generally keep up? How do you stay up to date on trends?
I don't. I'm head above water. I mean, I hang out with lots of people that, I mean, to be honest, like some of my friends keep me up to date on anything else. It's tough. Like, I can't keep up with what's going on. I have to learn the OneSpot platform. Like, that's its own thing. I've already learned like 3 other platforms, like technically. I'm learning this one. It's hard for me to just keep up with what's going on day to day in the world. And so, like I said, literally Twitter is kind of my lifeblood of figuring out. But I also talk to a bunch of people. I have friends that are super technical and they want to talk about those things. So I kind of like sit in the corner and be quiet and listen and take it.
I mean, I think there's a couple things there. I mean, one, you do have to immerse yourself in this. I mean, those of us who teach this, we know, like, we're thinking about this stuff all the time. So our social media, the things sort of naturally come up, the people we follow on Twitter, the people you sort of surround yourself with, give you that leg up. But then also, I think there's something to like attending meetups where you don't know that much, like going to the ones that really push your knowledge. Maybe you have no idea what Ruby on Rails is, but you go to the Austin on Rails meetup and you're the stupidest person in the room. I've used that sort of metaphor before, but that's the preferable state because you have the most potential to learn. You get to meet people you might not have met in other scenarios. And so, I mean, I think we're like in a digital world where this is the state of keeping up. It's like you have to immerse yourself in it, and it's not like you can take a weekend workshop and catch up, or hope that the company you're going to go to is going to train you in the first few weeks either. Like you have to really be paying attention to digital trends.
But I think no one's, I mean, especially in the startup, no one's going to train you. They don't even know how to like paperwork, because they're focused on whatever they need to do, right? Like, here's your paperwork, just take care of it, and let's go. Like, here's your email password. Like, it's time to move. Like, if you want training, you have to go to a big company. You have to
I'm not even sure big companies are doing it these days. I mean, they're all moving so fast, and they're all like spinning up new jobs and new roles that they hire people that they expect to like kind of come in and figure things out.
Yeah, I feel like IBM.
No, IBM's got to keep up with all these spry startup new technology things. So in terms of trends, like what kind of trends are you seeing? We were all at South by Southwest last couple of weeks. What kind of trends are you seeing that are like on the technological forefront?
I mean, everyone was talking about VR. I think
VR, Delphi.
I've had VR. I still don't understand. I mean, maybe someone here can explain it to me. I understand how people but what I don't understand is like how it's going to be accessible. That's the part I still don't understand. You build all this cool stuff, but how does everyone take part of it?
I mean, I have my doubts as well, and maybe some other people in here want to sort of chime in. I think it's a very immersive form of storytelling, and maybe for gaming, that is exactly what you want. But I have to say, just as an aside here, I had a moment at South by Southwest where I was trying on VR in a busy sort of a room, and you're so immersed in it that you're not aware of the rest of your surroundings any longer. So I was like, is someone going to steal my purse so they can take my phone? Like, I mean, you're constantly like, you're supposed to be aware of your surroundings, right? You put that on, you're not in your surroundings any longer. And because I was at that thing by myself and not with friends, or I had tried VR in like a more like a home kind of a space with friends, that didn't occur to me. But when I was in the sort of public space with the thing, like I'm never going to sit in a movie theater with a VR on because that's a prime way for somebody to come steal your purse. So they've got to figure that out. But I think there's like augmented reality that can like layer things over the actual environment. I think they've got a lot to figure out before people are kind of comfortable. And then getting the devices in their hands. Like the cardboard is cheaper and that's kind of fun to look at. But
I think data and numbers and APIs, that's huge. I think that's not going anywhere ever. I think once people really figure out how to use it for their benefit, it would be great.
What about social media platforms? What do you see? I mean, Snapchat, everybody's talking about that and using that in different ways.
Yeah, in the slow death of Twitter or whatever you want to call it. I think Facebook's not going anywhere. I think Facebook's going to make some moves, at least from the rumblings of people I talked to. They're going to make some pretty big moves in the next 6 to 9 months. That are gonna,
which include VR.
Which include VR, but I also know that they're working on some ways to help brands deal with customer service issues and things like that. So I think Facebook is going to take a pretty big leap by the end of the year. I think bigger than what people expect. That's just, I don't know anything extreme, but just talking to people. I think mobile is the thing that people know about it. Everyone has a phone, but no one really thinks about like all the things that you can do with mobile and still cannot do with mobile. Like if that gets better, I think you can develop a way. Let's just throw this out here. You go to the doctor and they can put all your charts on an iPad or your phone and then push those charts to a specialist so they can look at your knee. Like if you think about the ways that you could use mobile to like make things run better and disrupt or innovate, I just think we haven't touched the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, and I think it's the same thing for VR. People are going to figure out how to make this work.
Yeah.
We just have to get the technology into a lot of different people's hands. Question?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask.
No, totally. No, I totally get that. I guess what I'm talking about is like South by does this weird thing where like everybody's there. It's like hot new stuff, but like is the person in Middle America who lives in Iowa going to be able to really take part in whatever VR is? Like, is that going to be a game changer for them? Maybe it is. I don't know. I have no clue. But those are the kinds of things I think about. Like, it's great to be a part of all these early adopters hanging out, checking out the bullshit. But does this actually translate to the regular person? That's the question I have. Talking about Vice, I didn't realize this. This is pretty cool. As a journalism like storyteller, Vice created like really cool, awesome, portable, basically. I guess they call them like newsrooms that they're going to start using, where they can basically drop a newsroom anywhere and put up a desk and a green screen and everything in like super quick, like 20 minutes, and beam it out to a bird. And I guess they're going to start. I was talking to some people like this is really cool. They basically set up a newsroom wherever you want.
Wow. So, with the cardboard, New York Times gave everybody, every one of their subscribers, access to cardboard. And I think you're totally right about the empathy portion of VR. If you could be in the midst of a protest, or if you can actually walk on Mars, I mean, that's super cool, right? But I think, that there's a long way to go before it's accessible to so many people. But the cardboard really took things quite a bit ahead, because you can just take your smartphone and put it in this, cardboard configuration, and then, simulate what it's like to be in a VR environment. So I think those are good areas with a lot of potential. Question?
Hey Josh, so passionate about storytelling. How can I make a passion like that into a career? And something profitable.
Like, yeah,
You don't want to make documentaries for the rest of your life, which can be profitable if you're Ken Burns. Yeah, I think if you really like storytelling, I think you probably have to decide like what kind of stories you want to tell. Like if you're good with
everything's storytelling.
right? At this point, everyone talks about what's the story that you can put out there. If you want to do that for a marketing team and tell really cool stories, then and you like that product, obviously that's going to help. But there's also really fun companies out there that basically build storytelling tools that you can be a part of. There are these content marketing um, companies that do basically develop ways for you to put your blogs or your posts out there. So you can work, you could be, Scribble Live is a good example of that. Like they basically started out as a live blogging platform and then have turned it into this content marketing platform. So you help people write their blogs and get them out the door and then they go up. So I think finding, if you want it to be profitable, finding those things that you really enjoy, but you can take it kind of on a different level. Like you may not be telling that story, but you may be helping people tell, their story.
I mean, data can tell stories. Obviously, virtual reality can tell stories. There's all sorts of interactivity that can be introduced that would make stories more personalized. So storytelling is a pretty broad umbrella at this point. I think he's right to focus in on what you're good at and then see what the opportunities are in that realm.
How many people have Spotify? Did you guys all do like the year in review and saw what you listened to? Like that's a storytelling. You all of a sudden got to see what you were listening to for the entire year, and it built this narrative in your head that they don't know, but you start to make these connections. I listened to this album in February because of this, and you kind of go through the whole process. Like there's lots of things that work that way, and they use data, right? They didn't, and you basically fill in the gaps of your years.
Next.
I don't know. It's the same thing people complain about with Facebook. I don't think it compares. Like, I think change is hard, and then you do it for 2 weeks, and you're like, "Oh, isn't this how it always is?" I really think that's what people are going to do. I don't think it's going to change.
I mean, I hate the idea, but if suddenly there's extra value in it for me that
Right.
I like, then maybe I don't hate it anymore. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you're right.
I think people. I don't think. I think it's an easy thing to like ping Instagram for, and I think there's a good amount of haters out there that like to see stuff fail, and so I think there's people that are like, well, Instagram's going to do this, and people are going to stop using it. I don't see that happening.
Good question.
It's great. I will say like it's great, and everyone else knows it's great. So if you're not networking, if you're not interning now, if you're not like trying to talk to people about what's going on, like start doing that. I mean, basically the rest of the country knows Austin is kind of a hotbed at the moment, but there's so many opportunities. There's so many places that are just going to expand incredibly quickly.
So, any other job hunting tips? I mean, networking, I think, is a really key tip.
Yeah, I don't. There's someone can look it up. Basically, what I've learned is someone had a percentage of like people getting jobs. It's all about who you know at this point because everyone seems to have a resume, but it's like, how do I know that you'll do a better job than this person, than this person, than this person? Like you have to have that relationship with that. Like I said, networking internships. I cannot stress that enough. When I was in undergrad, I probably did 3 or 4 to get my first reporting job. It took me 3 or 4 internships internships to get that. When I was here for grad school, I did at least 2, if not 3 internships. And while it wasn't stuff I was like super excited about doing, I met people, worked with people, learned things,
Built a portfolio.
built a
You know, have
portfolio.
projects you can show people.
And don't burn bridges. And go in with like an understanding that this is like dating at this point. Like if you might get 3 or 4 offers, but go and make sure it's the right fit. Because if it's not, you're not going to stay. You'll be staying.
Any other questions? Well, you've got him here. Else in the room? So, Josh, if we talk to you in a year from now, what kind of things will have happened to you that would make you feel like your move to this new company has been successful?
I'm still have the same job.
Still employed.
I'm still at one spot. That would be a bonus, especially for my mom. You know, I think for me, you know, I went to this with the idea that I can do this position, but I want to grow into something more from it. So I hope I'm still at one spot. I hope I'm doing what I really want to do, whatever I'm really good at there. That would be success. That would be successful for me. Now, will that happen? I don't know. Like that's totally up to me. Like, I only have control over what I can control. So really, just keep doing good work, doing good work, doing good job. But I would say a year from now, if I'm still there, that's awesome. If I'm not, I'll be able to play from this and that without.
I think that's the best advice: is just do good work, and then that rises to the top. Well, let's thank Josh for joining us today.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
And if anybody wants to chat with Josh, we've got a little extra time here on the end. Thank you all for coming this evening.
My undergrad